You're watching news at Prime. All right, let's take you back to one of the leading stories now. Lobby group AfriForum welcoming the progress of a U.S. bill that's targeting specific ANC leaders, reiterating its stance that it never advocated for the targeting of the country as a whole. Ernst Roots, or rather Ernst van Zyl, is from AfriForum, and he joins us now. Ernst, good evening to you. Thank you very much for your time. I was saying when you couldn't hear me earlier that important not to confuse viewers here and make them think that there is now a law that's already been passed in America. This is a bill. It's basically a proposed law that is going to target South Africa and specific ANC leaders. It's in its infancy stages. Your thoughts about what it says, though, ultimately, because you were a huge proponent of this being done by America.
I think that's very important context. Thank you very much for that. Yes, this bill is not going to be instated as law tomorrow or today or even in the near future. It is now on it's one step closer to realization. And AfriForum welcomes this bill being one step closer to realization, seeing as it is exactly what we've been advocating for, targeted sanctions rather than sanctions that target South Africa as a whole, and sanctions that target specifically those politicians that are corrupt and are getting away with corruption, and those that are pushing laws that amount to abuse of human rights. So I think this bill is right on the money, and that's why AfriForum welcomes it. And we'll see where it goes. There's still a long road ahead, but we will be watching closely.
There is that specific disclaimer, if you like, where you say, as AfriForum, you never advocated for the whole country to be sanctioned. But as you hear it, this bill speaks in large part about South Africa being punished, not only for being aligned to certain countries, but also for its stance on Israel. If South Africa is sanctioned, surely you've got to take some flack for what you have gone to America to propose. Will you take responsibility if ultimately South Africa is sanctioned?
Well, that's not what AfriForum advocates, so I don't see why we should be taking responsibility for something that we don't advocate. And then secondly, when it comes to this bill specifically, it talks about the actions of the South African government as a whole, but at the same time, it talks about the consequences being that certain politicians will be targeted with those sanctions. That's a world of difference. So that's why AfriForum welcomes this bill being closer to reality. But if South Africa is as a whole punished or sanctioned by the United States, I don't see why AfriForum should be blamed or be made the scapegoat for that. The main blame should then fall on the South African government for their antics and their extremist rhetoric and the laws that they are pushing that caused the reaction and the retaliation from the United States in the first place. AfriForum can only take responsibility for that which we advocate.
Yeah. You'll remember the president of this country. I think it was just after his visit, or possibly even before that, when he went to the White House. He did say that he takes a dim view of organizations such as yours, including members of political parties whose parties are represented in Parliament, that you cannot advocate for your country, South Africa, being punished by another country, because it is going to do untold damage to the South African economy. And this is going to now involve, or it's going to affect just about everyone. So how do you avoid a situation where the government says, well, this is what AfriForum advocated for, and therefore they must take responsibility for what has happened? How do you avoid being lynched, so to speak?
Well, from AfriForum's side, I mean, I really can't see why punishing corrupt politicians is going to destroy a country's economy. That's going to be left up to the ANC to explain how those politicians that are pushing destructive laws, when they are punished for those destructive human rights abuses or for their corruption, how that's going to destroy the South African economy or going to negatively affect the average man on the streets. I can't really see the connection there, so that's on the ANC to explain. But then secondly as well, when your country is provoking another country and that country retaliates, as the United States is doing now with this type of bill, then the blame lies with those who did the provoking, but also at the same time with those who refuse to find a solution domestically to these problems. AfriForum wrote to the president on many occasions in the past, last year, this year, the year before that. We wrote letters to the president saying these are the issues that AfriForum cares about, and we want to find a solution domestically in South Africa. And we were given no response. We were given a response that says we received your letter, and that was the end of it. So there is no will from the ANC in regards to solving these problems domestically. They only wait until the bomb has exploded on the international stage before they then start making a lip service towards let's solve this domestically. But the opportunity was there on a silver platter, and they rejected it. So when it comes to who should take the blame, well, those who, when it comes to the old saying that goes, what you sow, you shall reap. Well, the ANC has been sowing a lot of corruption, a lot of human rights abuses, and now it's the reaping time, and that is what we're seeing unfold here.
A previous bill that was introduced on the same grounds, it reached the stage of Congress, but it failed when it came to the Senate. And remember, as we said at the introduction of our conversation, that both houses have got to pass this bill for it to become law. So we're still far away from that. What would the ideal situation be for AfriForum that perhaps it is abandoned given the calamitous consequences that it might bring with it? Or would you be of the view that actually America must still push through with this?
I think America should push through, and I think it should be passed, because the only calamitous effects that it will have is calamitous effects on the luxurious lives of corrupt politicians in this country. And to put it very frankly, I don't really care very much for the luxurious lives of those politicians. They should be feeling the consequences of their own actions.
The point here, Ernst, is that, yes, ANC politicians perhaps deserve punishment, to use your words. However, it's the whole country being enveloped in the whole sanctions scheme that is going to be punishing for the rest of South Africa. And we both know that South Africa is a majority poor country. Many people in South Africa live below the breadline. And so how do you still justify that? Yes, on the one hand, you're advocating for ANC politicians to take the blame for this, but it's the whole country, and that's the point.
Right. No, but the point is that this bill is particularly concerned with targeted sanctions, and those targeted sanctions being targeted at those corrupt politicians. So I don't see really how the targeting of corrupt politicians is going to destroy the country or harm the average man on the street.
If, let's say, the tariffs situation, that is going to have untold, or is going to do untold damage to companies that employ South Africans. It's a similar thing that I'm saying to you. Are you at least willing to...
The tariffs are a separate issue, and that's an issue that the ANC and the ANC-led government seems to have wasted the past 90 months, in 90 days or 3 months. It's a problem that they refuse to seem to even want to try to solve, from what we are hearing and what's being reported. For the past for the last 3 months, we didn't even have a diplomatic representative in Washington during one of the largest diplomatic crises that South Africa has experienced post-1994. That's once again, if you want to talk about tariffs, that's once again an issue that's completely at the foot of the ANC-led government. They are the ones who should be blamed for the situation that we are in at the moment.
Yeah, but AfriForum has the ear of the current administration, although you won't tell us who you speak to directly there when you get to Washington. I'm saying you have the ear of the current administration, and the point is whether you would advocate for these tariffs not to go through, because, by the way, there is a large farming community, and it's the Afrikaners who are largely commercial farmers in South Africa. Surely they're going to take the pain. Surely they don't want this.
Right, but now we've moved on now from targeted sanctions to talking about tariffs. I mean, tariffs is a completely different issue. That's an issue where AfriForum has not advocated that that tariffs should be put on South Africa. If you want to talk about tariffs, we can talk about that. When it comes to the tariffs that are going to be instituted on the 1st of August, those are once again linked to the direct actions of the South African government. And the American government has been very clear in regards to what needs to be done for the relations between the South African government and the American government to improve. Those 4 things have been made very clear. Firstly, they said that kill the Boer as a chant needs to be unequivocally and unreservedly condemned. Secondly, they said no expropriation without compensation is allowed to happen. They said that all American companies should be exempt from racially discriminatory policies. And then fourthly, they said that when it comes to the ANC-led government, a reaction to farm murders, that farm murders need to be made a priority crime in South Africa. And those 4 requirements have been made very clear, and none of them have been addressed by the South African government. And as I said earlier, as we've heard last week, what was reported is that for the past 3 months, we haven't even had, as a country, a diplomatic representative in the United States, because it's being reported that our special envoy, Mr. Jonas, has had his visa rejected and his credentials not being recognized by the American government. And the South African government it's being reported that the South African government was aware that Mr. Jonas was not going to be accepted by the American government on those grounds, and they didn't do anything to rectify the situation. Again, it all comes back to this is it's you reap what you sow, and it comes back to the fact that only one entity can really be held responsible, whether we're talking about tariffs or talking about targeted sanctions. Either way, it is the ANC-led government of this country.
All right. Ernst van Zyl speaks for AfriForum. Thank you very much for your time.